Welcome to Passages Pulse, where we track the heartbeat of Israel and the Middle East from a Christian perspective. In a time of confusion, division, and misinformation, we're here to help you cut through the noise with truth, clarity, and conviction.
Welcome back, everyone. My name is Josiah McGee. I'm the resident scholar here at Passages, as well as the co-host of the Passages Pulse podcast. Lucky you guys get to be in the room and hopefully ask Dany a couple of questions after the fact. If you're listening to this online, we're here in DC for Passages DC Experience in August of 2025. So we're very privileged to have with us a special guest today, who is Dany Berdichevsky, good friend of mine. We've been on actually at least one trip to Israel together, right?
You are a fellow. That's the last time that you fellowed before you became senior fellow.
Yeah, I moved on up in the world and we didn't get to spend so much time together, which was not so fun, but really great to have Dany here. Throughout the weekend, we've had a great time. And one of the things we love to do is take advantage of the fact that people like Dany come all the way from Israel to be with us and share a bit of their perspective. So for the next several minutes, we're going to have a fireside chat where I get to ask Dany some questions that I've been dying to ask him. But before we jump into that, just want to read a bit of a bio about Dany so you know a little bit about him if you don't already know this. I don't know what you've been told yet. And then we'll just jump into some hard-hitting questions, all right?
Okay.
All right, Dany Berdichevsky holds both a BA and an MA in Israel Studies and Geography from the University of Haifa. He also completed the Ministry of Tourism's tour guide course, and he has 17 years experience as a tour guide in Israel. Before becoming a guide, Dany served 3 years in the Israeli military as a medical instructor, and he has spent 19 years, really dating yourself there a little bit, 19 years.
There is a reason that no hair, a little bit here is gray.
19 years in the Israeli military reserves as a medic in the Gaza Medical Unit. Outside of guiding, Dany is also a certified dive master who has explored underwater sites on 4 continents, also an avid hiker who completed the Camino de Santiago in Spain, and he lives just outside of Tel Aviv as a proud father to 2 young boys who keep a sense of wonder and adventure alive every day. Dany, are there any other fun facts that you'd like to add to this impressive list?
My favorite food is empanada.
Okay. Your favorite movie? This is my favorite fun fact about you.
Okay, my favorite movie, and I know it was a question from the first day I went here, is Nacho Libre. And I'm sure that somewhere online they have videos of me singing.
Oh, 100%. I have one on my phone.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's good stuff. All right, let's get a little more serious though, Dany, because there's a lot of stuff going on we want to ask you about. Let's start with your background pre-October 7, because I think you have a really interesting and unique perspective, actually, having spent so much time in the reserves and in the specific unit that you serve in. But I want to maybe start with some history, and then we'll get to the war itself. How did you get involved with the Gaza Medical Unit, and what was the original purpose of that unit, or reason why you wanted to join it?
Okay, so in Israel, as you maybe know, the military service, mandatory service is 3 years, and I spent most of those 3 years as a medical instructor, basically giving explanation from the basic EMT all the way to groups of doctors, nurses, and how to work together as an organic team. And when you finish the service as a medical profession, you're offered a few different options, and I just decided that my expertise would be best used as a medical evac unit. So that's what I've been doing. Sadly, and I do mean that in the most serious part of the way, is that I participated in all the operations that happened in Gaza since 2008, 2010, 2014, and the current situation and the war. In all of them, it's the same role. We need to treat mainly Israeli soldiers, but also Palestinian civilians that we offer them. They not always accept, but also take them to hospitals in Israel.
Let's unpack that a little bit, because I think something that maybe most people don't know is that this medevac unit works, to your point, Dany, not just with soldiers, but also with civilians at times. Can you give us an example? What's a scenario in which you would find yourself needing to evacuate a Palestinian civilian, and how does that work?
So I will give an example that happened to specifically on my ambulance. The front unit, which means the combat unit, the one that you heard, like the son of the ambassador that we heard from 2 days ago, in the very front unit, found 2 kids. Okay, sadly, as a terrorist was escaping, he actually used this specific family as human shields. And as he turned the corner, he shot. So the Israeli soldiers won't be able to run after him. He shot the parents, and they had found the 2 kids just laying, and they were also wounded, but not critically. For 5 hours, they just tried to contact and ask the Red Crescent. In the US, you have the Red Cross. In Muslim countries, it's just called the Red Crescent. To come and pick them. They refused. And eventually we took them on our ambulances and one of the medics to accompany them to the hospital, spend the night with them, and in the morning he just came back. Then they stayed for further treatment.
It's interesting that you mentioned as well the number of operations that you've been a part of in Gaza. I mean, obviously there's a long history of conflict between Israel and Hamas. It seems like the October 7 conflict, it doesn't seem, it objectively was very different than the previous operations. It's the kind of day that I think really will go down in history. Most people who experienced it in some way, whether directly or even from some distance in Israel, will never forget where they were on that day. Would you mind telling us just a little bit of your own experience? Where were you? When did you figure out what was happening? What was that day like for you?
Okay, so it was a Shabbat. It was very nice because I was traveling and enjoying time with my family the week prior to that. And the tourism season was about to start on Monday. And more importantly, my son was about to celebrate his 5th birthday on the 8th. So very excited. We went to sleep Friday, already bought, balloons and all this stuff, for his gift. And then at 6:30 a.m., just like most people in Israel, we woke up to sirens. Sadly, something that we're not familiar with. Okay, and we just went down to our safe room and we said, okay, for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, we'll pass. And sadly, my boy, again, just almost 5-year-old, looks at me and said, Dad, why no one lets Israel rest in peace? Okay, to have a quiet, and I was like, what can we do? It happens. But then the sirens never stopped. Again, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, half an hour. I guess that if I will ask you what is the first thing that you do while after you wake up, you will say that you are going to the washrooms. You're going to ease yourself. It's very difficult to do when you need to just calculate time to run, do your business, and then come back, especially to explain it to a 3 and a 4-year-olds. They're less keen on understanding. And actually, one of those images that I still have that I'm trying to make my kids to just feel more at ease. So I have a helmet that I took, Bob the Builder's helmet that I took for my son, and we just laughed about it. And basically, around 8, after an hour and a half in the safe room, my wife already looks at me and says, they're going to call you, right? And I'm like, yes. And then about at 9, we already started to get news, on the apps. Hey, there are terrorists, there are things weird. They already, in cities, in Sderot, they already see terrorists driving. And of course, no one really understands what is happening. No one understood. Nowhere in Israel. No one knew what's going on. And I think that at 10 o'clock, it was 10 a.m., it was already clear that something catastrophic is happening. And at 10:30, I already got the call that I need to report to my unit, which is in the desert, which means that I need to drive around the Gaza Strip. So not close to, but still, it was crazy to see all the cars are driving north. And my friend and I were the only car driving south. While rockets fly above our heads. So that was the start of October 7th, with me needing to say to my kid, I will celebrate your birthday, but not tomorrow. Broke my heart, still strikes in a chord, even 2 years after.
Yeah, I can only imagine as a dad having to say that to your kids. It's a lot to have to explain to a child. How much do your kids understand? I mean, they were only 3 and 4 at the time. 2 years have passed, so they're what, 5 and 6 now, I assume?
Almost. The second will be almost 7. Yeah, so 5 and 6 right now.
Yeah. Do they have any idea of what happened or how significant that day was?
It's a good question. I think that only in like few years I'll be able to give an honest answer to that. Just I want to say right now, when I was called to the reserves, I served the first deployment, we can say, was for 7 months. And then I came back for a month. And actually in that month, I visited just up there in the Senate. And then came back to Israel and served. In total, I served almost 500 days out of officially 666 days today. That this conflict has been continuing. And after a year or so, they said, okay, Dad, maybe you'll stop. And I said, you know what, I understand what you're saying, but do you remember that there are still, back then, was about 100 hostages? And I said, but you know that we're still waiting for them, and I'm in the medical unit, and we are the ones that also received those hostages when they came home. And I said, what do you say? Maybe we'll strike a deal. I can be in the army only until the hostages come back. And you won't believe, but let's say 4 and 5 and 6, they look at me and say like, they talked among themselves. And then they said, okay, Dad, but only until, when they come back, you're coming back. So they do understand. And it's something that, is up there. I will tell you, and I hope that none of you will have to look at your child that because of those 12 days with Iran, they were like all the time in that safe room. And then after 2 weeks after it ended, there was a siren because of a rocket from Yemen. And I really don't want it to explain to any 6-year-old that says like, what, again with Iran? I don't want to go to the base. And I said, no, it's Yemen, as if it's better.
It's a surreal world that your kids live in.
Yes.
Hard to wrap your mind around that for sure. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your reserve service. So you've done a lot. 500 days is not unusual, unfortunately, for a lot of reservists, but that is in our conception, I think, kind of an unimaginably long amount of time to be away from your job and your family in a 2-year period. So what have you been doing during that time? I mean, you mentioned, of course, some of that involves receiving hostages. Maybe we can hear a little bit more about that in a second. But as far as what you've been doing in Gaza, what has most of your work looked like, and how has it differed from the previous operations that you served in?
Okay, so the biggest change, I would say, is the starting point, because all the other operations are operations that are entirely inside of Gaza. And in here, because of how it started on October 7th, the start was you have terrorists inside of Israel for the first week. Okay, that everywhere that we had to go around the street, it's full protection, weapons already ready, just like checking. And you would see special units go, warehouse to warehouse, greenhouse to greenhouse, just like literally just like in the movies that you see, Second World War or Vietnam, that they are just checking if there are any terrorists, and they were funding them, which was also surreal. Let's say you never expected it as an Israeli to find terrorists a few days after still hiding inside of Israel. Israel took roughly 3 weeks before the operation or the ground movement into Gaza started. In that time, the main focus of the army was, okay, clear, Israel itself, and also call the Gazans to move south, okay, because that's the direction of movement. They wanted to enter from the north. So after 3 weeks that everyone was just like, no, let's come on, everyone are excited. Everyone wants their hostages back. And the forces started to move. Sadly, everything is booby-trapped in Gaza. I would like to describe you the smell, but like I really cannot. It's a stench that still I can still smell it, and that's with me spending most of those months in Gaza along the coast, which also creates a big frustration because you see the beautiful coastline of Gaza, and I do mean that. Okay, and you say, hey, things would just be different if we would have easier neighbors. Okay, this would be where I would spend every weekend. Okay, just eating fish on the coast next to the port of Gaza. But this is just crazy. And I was almost halfway into Gaza along the coast. That's where we had our front base, just in case, again, people would be injured. And that means to land helicopters, to drive to the hospital, whether with Israelis, that's most of what we did, but also Palestinians on numerous occasions. And that's the first 7 months. And then my unit had changed its direction. And then in the last months, it was more along the perimeter. So not really penetrating deep into Gaza like before. It's just about half a mile into Gaza. And again, same routine. Threats had remained the same. Because we were a bit further, I also saw the amount of authorizations that go behind every operation. And I know that it's something that the audience here heard from the ambassador and on numerous times, but it is unbelievably calculated how they try to minimize threat to civilians. I had seen how there was one suspect that they tracked him, with drones for 1 hour and 45 minutes because they weren't sure because it was also in the middle of the night. So if he's an innocent civilian, they said, it's a boy, it's not a boy. And I also said, it's a boy. Which father would let his young son to walk around in a war zone at 2 a.m.? But, those are just the thoughts that you have in the middle of the night. And they just said, no, we're not sure. And then as the sun rose, they just said, okay, good, but he can go. And they just let him. So it's when we hear in the news things that they say that the Israeli forces opened fire or something, it's usually, and of course, we cannot guarantee war is hell. I'm not going to say use any other word for it. But everything passes at least 3 authorizations before it starts. Okay, if it's an operation, if it's something, it is done very methodically.
We're gonna hear tomorrow from a family member of 2 hostages in Gaza. So we'll hear more about, I think, the situation regarding the hostages. But I would be curious if you can share any tidbits about what did you learn? What sort of impact did it have on you, if you do have any experience receiving hostages back from Hamas as part of your time in the unit?
So we received them, but didn't have any direct contact with them because of their condition. Okay, the only ones that they saw that were part of our unit, let's say large, were psychologists. Those are the people who received them. Okay, because those are people that some of them hadn't seen sunlight for 480, 450, 460 days, kept in a cage. Some of them, as I starving, some on the verge of starving. And then after the psychologist just received them, just talked to them a little, they saw their family members, and then they were taken in a helicopter to the hospital. I would say that I had the privilege to hear a few of them speak on different occasions, including a meeting while I was guiding Senator John Fetherman from Pennsylvania last March. So I also had a meeting with them, and their stories are, I hate to say, just like the stories that you saw in the museum of the Holocaust Museum, but it's as close as possible, with no exaggeration about that. The cruelty, the everything, it's there. It's just like the stories that appear in the Holocaust Museum.
One of the things that has been challenging, I think, in recent weeks is just from afar. I mean, my own observation, for what it's worth, is that there is a strong sense of fatigue in Israel. I mean, it's been almost 2 years. The war is ongoing. Israel doesn't usually fight wars this long. And it just seems like Israel's just getting tired of the war, honestly. And as a natural byproduct of that process, it seems like there's also a lot of debate right now about why is this war being fought, and maybe a bit of struggling to remember why it's being fought, or struggling to get on the same page about different reasons why, different priorities that people bring to the table in terms of why this war is being fought, whether it's destroying Hamas or trying to get the right conditions for a ceasefire, or whether it's the hostages or whatever it may be. So I want to ask you to speak for all Israelis, because that wouldn't be fair. But from your perspective, why is this war being fought? What are the reasons why you think this war is being fought, and what sort of impact have you seen that struggle have on your community?
Okay, so first I will say, on a personal notice, you have in the back of the room, and also this the same picture. This is what I want to go back on doing. Okay, if it's fine with the world, I want to go back to Magdala. Again, to guys. I think that I do it nicely. So, but yes, people are tired. Okay, honestly, again, talking about myself, but also talking on behalf of many of my friends. We just want to go back to have one normal day. The last time that we had one, probably January of 2020, between COVID and the war, maybe. I think that if we would ask, and it appears also in surveys that are conducted every now and then, most Israelis just want those people back. Also, just
one second. Yeah, the yellow pen is a symbol for the advocacy for the return of the hostages. That's what he's referring to.
Yes. So right now we still have 50 hostages in Gaza. The estimation is that 20 of them are still alive. 30 sadly had been declared dead. Some of them had been dead since October 7th. Some, I guess, intel tells that they died in captivity, being held by the Hamas. And the vast majority of people say, like, if there will be an offer to bring all 50 tomorrow, the state of Israel, in its current situation, with this opinion among its people, would say yes. Okay, and I know that, and I also have a lot of criticism on the government and how the war is run, why it's prolonged. But in the end, we also need to remember that the other side never said, yes, take 50 back and let's cut it. So we just hope that somehow, and we have moments that, again, according to the news, we're getting closer and closer, and some moments that we get further and further back, but we do hope that it will finish soon. And that we can start, healing. And I'm talking also not only healing in Israel, but also healing on the other side, because of course it's also in Gaza. people won't be good. Okay, and that's a point that I really want to make. That in order to be pro-Palestinian, you also need to be somehow pro-Israeli and vice versa. Because to make it good for one, you'll also have to make it good for the other. Because when you look at the map of Israel, we're entwined. Okay, we're one with the other, and you can be pro one and anti the other and expect it to have good results.
How would you describe the impact? I mean, you've described a bit about what most people want. They want the hostages back, for example.
Mm-hmm.
What would be the impact on Israeli society, do you think, if that were to happen?
That's a good question. I would go with healing, because right now people are talking from pain, and any answer that someone will get will be like out of inner pain and suffering. Doesn't matter if you are a member of those families that their loved ones are still in Gaza. Doesn't matter if you know someone that died in the war or in the attack of October 7th. Doesn't matter if you're a father or a parent, that their children are still in Gaza and you cannot have a good night's sleep, not knowing if that knock on the door would arrive. So yes, I think that this is what the Israeli society needs right now. Just a moment to breathe deep, what you cannot do for the last year and 10 months almost.
Last question that I have for you, and then we'll let them ask some questions as well. What gives you the most hope for the future right now?
What gives me the most hope? That 1 year and 10 months after this started, still talk, not on a daily basis, but I still talk with my Palestinian friends. Some of them attended my wedding, so sorry if someone is offended by that. But I still talk to them, and I think that if after everything that we passed through, we can still just talk, there is a still of hope. And I just hope that that it will end and people would be, again, able to... I really want to go back to Bethlehem to visit my friends. I want them to be able to come back and to enjoy and sit with me in Jerusalem and drink coffee, eat baklavas. No, sorry, I actually like knafe. It's the other Arab sweet.
Both are very good, very good. If you have the opportunity to visit, ask Dany where to go. I'm sure he's got some sweet shops in mind he can tell you about. Thank you, Dany. I appreciate you being willing to share. Those are some really personal stories and a lot that you've given us to think about, so I appreciate that.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Passages Pulse. Help us grow this community by liking, sharing, and subscribing. If you like this week's episode, let us know by leaving a comment below. This podcast is a project of Passages Israel. We exist to educate the next generation of Christians on modern Israel, deepen the roots of their faith, and equip leaders to foster positive Christian engagement with Israel and the Jewish people. To learn more about Passages, follow us on social media or visit us at passagesisrael.org. Until next time, we'll keep our finger on the pulse.